I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for stopping by. At the Bold Business Podcast, we are normalizing important conversations. Yes, there are tips. Yes, there are ways to solve problems. More importantly, are going to be, what do you need for yourself to be able to solve those problems and make the most of the education, the training, and the programs that you are already using. This is a supplement to that. It can sit on top of it, fuel your soul, fuel your mind, and most importantly, regardless of where you're at on your journey. Maybe you're starting out. Maybe you're ready to scale. Maybe you're going through reinvention. The conversations we are having will help you at each of those stages. So hang around, see what's going on, and I look forward to seeing you engaging with our videos.
As a homeowner, you are not the expert. You have no clue. What do? You go with the guy you feel best with, right? Which is probably the best sales guy, which, by the way, coincidentally, is probably be the least qualified to act as an engineering mind frame.
Wow! You are listening to the Bold Business Podcast, where you will hear firsthand experiences about what it really takes to ensure market relevance and your company's future.
RK Bob Brown knows dirt. He's known as the Dirt Whisperer. I invited him to come speak with me and have a conversation on the Bold Business Podcast because he has taken 35 years of experience and not only drastically has the breadth of knowledge, he has the depth of knowledge with which to make a difference today. He actually shared with us over those 35 years, not a lot has changed in his industry. That's crazy. We've improved all kinds of things regarding residential real estate and the way we look at it, feel about it, own it, live in it, insure it even. And yet take care of it is a big piece of it. Yet the solutions are similar to what they were 35 years ago. Crazy. And so one of the things he was talking about is that when you have a problem, you sell the solution that you have and make it fit the problem. And so if you have a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. He is changing that. He is saying, hey, I understand that we are in this repeat process in our industry, and we've got to change it. We need to change our ways. Homeowners, I can help you with that. Mortgage brokers, home inspectors, I can help you with that. Real estate professionals, I can help you with that. So that everybody in the process understands what's going on. Everybody in the process can know what's happening so that the sale of real estate can occur with more confidence. More importantly, while we're living there, we get to enjoy it and know our house, provided we're choosing to live in houses, will stay standing around us, regardless of what the dirt is doing, and better understanding where we live and what the dirt is doing. And there were 3 things that I took away. So you're going to hear about his experiences as a business owner, how he was trained, all of the things, and then what happened when he decided to sell his business. Very interesting story there. The second thing that we're really going to focus on that I want to highlight now is that 35 years of the same solutions, and not a whole lot of new stuff. So there's room for disruption. There's also room for better understanding for us. We can be, and that takes us to the third thing, which is we can be our own advocate. So when we are dealing with anything in our life, and he talks about foundation repair, but really any decision we're making in our life, who is the person that will have the information that we can pay for a little bit of their time so that we can make a more sound decision that has lasting impact in the future? So be your own advocate. That is what I'm going to say to you. And let's hear the passion and the excitement that RK Bob Brown is bringing us in this conversation. And I can't wait to hear what you think in the comments after. Have you always lived in Arizona?
I was born in rural Arizona. When I was a young kid, my parents moved to Southern California. I grew up there and came back about college age, and I've been here ever since. So that's been about 40 years.
What we build on is very different from actually rural Arizona to Phoenix from Southern California even, isn't it?
Part of the time we ended up living in Yuma. I remember it was real hot.
Yeah, Yuma. So let's talk about being attracted to dirt, knowing that there was work here that you wanted to do that launched your career on the path that it is today.
While I was going to Arizona State, I was studying architecture and finance. And I had to self-finance because I didn't have any money and I didn't have rich parents. And the way I did it is I did concrete repairs for commercial properties. It worked out well for me. I became known for good repairs in concrete. After I graduated, I had a good thing going. I just kept doing it. And eventually I kept looking for ways to innovate and differentiate and all that kind of stuff. And maybe I was a little bit more forward thinking than a lot of people in those industries. I ended up in the foundation repair world. A national distributor came looking for somebody to install their products. I learned that part of the business from them. They recruit new guys to be their single installer for an area. Those guys learn the business from the installer. One of the things I found out is the problem with that is you start to recognize all the problems through the lens of solutions from your single source supplier. That's one of the big problems in the industry. It's this myopia through the training. They don't recognize expansive soil heave. They don't recognize a lot of things because their supplier doesn't have solutions for it.
As you started to learn from this installer and learn business from this installer, you said something really powerful. I learned solutions to problems that only my supplier could solve.
That's right.
You said it differently, but right?
Yeah.
And with that in mind, how many, I'm going to actually ask a snapshot type question. Looking back then to today, are the number of solutions the same as it was then?
That are being offered by suppliers? Yes. They're focused on installing piering products, either helical piers or push piers.
I heard you say something serious is missing here.
That's right.
What's missing here?
You have to understand soils a little bit. So maybe we should back up and talk about soil for a minute. One of the common myths that people have, and by the way, I have 15 myths and 10 mistakes that real estate people have with foundation and foundation repairs, and they can get it free by signing up for my newsletter at foundationrepairsecrets.com. I'm going to try not to use jargon, but I know it's going to be like drinking from a fire hose. So that's the way people can catch up and rethink some of this stuff. So, so dirt, it's not one big mass of similar dirt all the way down. It's deposited in layers, and each of those layers have different mineral contents, different densities, different affinities and reactions to water. And those layers are not even. They're all lopsided and angled and stop and start with rocks and all kinds of things. And so each of those layers, when soil comes down to them, reacts differently. And if there's clays in there, clay is unique because clay particles are very tiny. The only way you can see an individual clay particle is to look at it with a scanning tunneling microscope. They have a slight positive charge, and water has a slight negative charge. So they attract water to them. Clay sucks because it sucks the water right over to it.
It's like a vacuum.
When it does that, it deposits each water particle right in between clay particles. And so then it expands. They move away from each other, the clay particles do. And when they dry up, they shrink back down. Take pictures of the desert with all the cracks. When it's dry, it shrinks up. And when it rains, all those cracks close. Well, that's clay. If it's down in the soil beneath the structure and it pushes up, and that causes, it's very powerful force. You cannot restrain it with steel or concrete or anything. It will move. Whatever's on top of it will move. And when it shrinks, it's going to go back down. Think about all the different layers. Some of them might be clay. Some of them might not be clay. Some of them might be consolidating. Some of them might be expanding. It can be very complicated. And it all depends on how much water gets to them and how often. One of the things that's missing in the industry, that coming back to your question, is that there hasn't been a lot of good solutions out there to fix clay heave. As I mentioned before, you cannot restrain it. It's too powerful. So what I did many years ago is I developed a drying system to manage the heave. And it uses the airflow through the gravel layer underneath the concrete foundation to dry out those wet clays and keep them from heaving so much. We don't want to shrink them too much. We don't want them to expand too much. And it's more of a management system. It's not going to take a big giant heave and pull it down for you, but it's going to keep it from getting worse. And you can patch all your cracks and live with it. Okay. The problem is that's the solution that was invented by me. I haven't been very successful in getting it adopted in the industry because it leads me to my second problem. The guys in the foundation repair industry don't do very good analysis. You call a foundation repair company, hello, yeah, I got a problem. Okay, we'll be right out. What do they send out? They send out a commissioned sales guy who is 100% commission. If he sells nothing, he makes nothing. And these guys get paid pretty well. They get paid somewhere between 100 and 300,000 a year. If they don't make at least 100 grand, they fire them. So there's a lot of stress to perform, and there's a lot of opportunity to perform. When they come to your house, they're not really doing analysis like a forensic geotechnical engineer would. They're coming out there to do a sales presentation.
Hold on. Okay, there's a forensic what?
Forensic geotechnical engineer. We can talk about
we should come back to that because I'm enjoying this conversation about here's how the business works.
Right.
Which, by the way, I think other businesses are built on this model as well. So maybe our listeners might not know foundations. They may not understand this as much, but you will understand the model and be able to take some of this with you. Okay, got it. Keep going.
It's similar to other industries, but the ramifications are much greater. The reason why is because what these sales guys are doing is work that should be done by an engineer. You don't design repairs to a structural foundation system without an engineering license. And you don't interpret soil data without being a geotechnical engineer. But all of that is going unnoticed throughout the world and nobody says anything and it's happening, which is wrong. These guys come out to the house and homeowners have a lot of questions. Is it going to get worse? What happens if it gets worse? Lots of questions. And these guys are not geotechnical engineers and they're motivated by sales. So how do you think they're going to answer those questions? I've heard sales guys say something like, on a scale of 1 to 10, Mr. Jones, your foundation is like an 8.5. And I'm thinking, okay, first of all, what scale is that? I've never heard of that scale. Is that like the Richter scale of foundation repair? What is that? And then I think, okay, how'd you arrive at 8.5? Based on my experience, all the years and everything, and the fact that my kids need braces, it's just subjective salesmanship designed to make homeowners feel good and pretend to be analysis when it's not really analysis.
So homeowner calls, salesperson comes, they're unqualified, they're setting up the solution to match the problem from the lens of the salesperson presenting.
If the only tool you have is a hammer, then all your problems start looking like nails.
Exactly.
What happens. And in the industry, they have what they call the one-call close. You look around the house, see the damaged problems, figure out a solution in your head right then and there, design a repair plan on the spot, and sell it, sign the contract, all in one visit.
We've alluded, most homeowners, their home is their most valuable asset. It's the thing they've spent the most money on. Any sort of repair carries a different level of emotion and a desire for understanding, but also maybe not the technical knowledge or the ability to understand the details, which is why the ask for help is occurring.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, so that homeowners could have a good understanding and they don't get the wool pulled over their eyes quite so easily.
Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below. I thrive on your feedback and engagement. You're listening to the Bold Business Podcast, and I'm your host, Jess Dewell. This is your program for strategizing long-term success while diving deep into what the right work is for your business right now.
Focused on growth? Listen to more programs like this which support the challenges and opportunities you are working with right now. Come on. Search Bold Business Podcast for the key terms at reddirection.com or your preferred podcast listening app.
We are our own best advocate. That is really one of the things that is incredibly important to remember. We think about it with our healthcare, the doctors we choose, the clothes we buy, the places we live, or the cars we drive. And we forget about it in some of the other things, like as little as toothpaste or as unexpected and maybe just because we don't have exposure to it, issues with our biggest asset, our home.
What do? You look up in the phone book, not phone book anymore, everybody just Googles or whatever, okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you find foundation repair companies because they're really good at marketing.
Most companies are these days, right? They got good digital presence.
Oh, yeah. You get 3 guys that come out to your house. One guy tells you need 5 piers on this side of the house. The other guy tells you need 15 piers. And the third guy tells you need 25 piers all the way around. How are you supposed to know which one's right? As a homeowner, you are not the expert. You have no clue. What do? You go with the guy that you feel best with, right? Which is probably the best sales guy, which coincidentally is probably be the least qualified as an engineering mind, because engineering personalities are detail-oriented. Sales personalities are not detail-oriented. You would never ask a salesperson to do accounting work. That's not going to work.
You want to know something, Bob? When I went to college, I thought I was going to be a biochemist. Turns out I grow businesses and I'm a podcast host. I am that. I know exactly what you're saying. I can read a financial report, but I'm not necessarily the best one to put it together. And I think that owning that is important.
I would hear sales guys, foundation repair owners, because I knew a lot. I was in lots of associations, and they'd be saying something like, I have this really good sales guy, and he could sell ice to Eskimos. Every one of his jobs is a disaster. I had to go behind it, fix all the crazy stuff because it doesn't make any sense. And the other guy says, I have a guy that, man, every job is perfect. The problem is he can't sell anything.
Ta-da! Okay, so let's talk about, I have so many things I want to do. But first, I want to say, you're coming to this conversation. You've talked to me, and we've decided to have this conversation because you are working to disrupt this model.
Right. That's right.
Yes. So how do you want to?
My advice to homeowners and realtors is to get to know and have a business relationship with geotechnical forensic engineers. These are the guys you want to call out. Now, they're not going to be free. Foundation repair companies are free. Of course, it's not really analysis. It's just sales dressed up like analysis. But if you call a forensic geotechnical engineer, you're going to get real advice. You're going to get a good opinion about whether it's done moving, could keep moving, whether it's a problem, whether it's not a problem, how bad is it? All these things, they'll use a scale that engineers use to grade these things objectively. You're going to get a repair plan. If it's a problem that needs to be fixed, most of the time it could be fixed easily with things like fixing drainage. But if it's a problem that is going to continue to get worse and the engineer feels like you need to underpin it, he'll give you a plan that says, put 17 piers right here, get a bid for 17 piers from 3 contractors, and you can get apples to apples bids and save a ton of money that way. So the model makes more sense to have engineers oversee. Now you've picked a contractor. Before he starts work, he needs to talk to the engineer. The engineer needs to qualify him and say, listen, Mr. Contractor, don't come to the homeowner with change orders. Oh, Mr. Homeowner, we need to add 5 more piers now that we're on the job site. We discovered something new. And what does the homeowner do? The homeowner's like, I don't know, it's got to do it, right? I don't know anything. But the engineer, you can't pull the wool over his eyes. Explain to me, it might be a valid reason, but explain it to me. Convince me. You better be pretty good if you're going to convince a geotechnical engineer that you need a change order. And then when it's all done, the engineer stamps it and says, it's done for he does a special inspection on the job. A lot of contractors hire their own special inspector. He's being paid by the contractor. How much of a stickler do you think he's going to be about things? Not really. The better way is to have the engineer who designed to be the special inspector, because he knows exactly what needs to be done, and he's going to insist on it. If he's going to put his seal on it at the end and make sure that it's right and say that it was done per his plans. Then when you're all done, so let's say you're a seller, then you go to sell the house, and the home inspector says, oh, by the way, I see some cracks. Everybody starts to panic, and you go, don't worry, I have this seal from the engineer that says everything's good. Well, all of a sudden, all those concerns disappear. Otherwise, you might be able to say to the homeowner, I had it repaired by ABC Foundation Company, and they gave me a lifetime warranty. How good is a lifetime warranty? Sounds good, but in reality, it's not worth the paper it's written on. Those contracts are long and complicated, and they have all kinds of get-out-of-jail-free cards for the contractor. One of the biggest ones is you call the contractor back after 5 years and you say, oh, it cracks again. Your stuff's not working. They send out one of their really experienced guys who knows all about heave and says, Mr. Homeowner, these are from heave. And it says right here in our contract that we're not responsible for heave. And our peers can't do anything about it. And we can't stop heave. Have a nice life. We'll see you later. And the homeowner's, wait, if it was heave all along, that means you diagnosed it wrong. And the contract, well, what do I know? I'm not an engineer. I'm just a contractor. And that's one of the problems in the business. There's no oversight for the designs. The contractor will try to BS the homeowner. They'll try to say, oh, yeah, when we submit this for permits, the engineer's going to look it over and make sure that everything's good. That's a lie, because the engineer who does the permits, the only thing that the city requires is a spacing calculation. That is, how far apart are the piers from each other? Because they don't want to be too far about droop between them, right? So all we want to do is a calculation to make sure that the piers are close enough to spread the loads around the house. That's the only thing they require, the only thing. And that's the only thing the engineer will seal when he gets a set of plans, when he seals a set of plans for work. You could have the piers on the wrong side of the house. You could have them not even needed at all. You could have all kinds of problems, and the permitting process does not correct for any of that. The engineer cannot, unless he gathers these original data, he's constrained by law and by ethics to not opine or comment or do anything on work that was not gathered, the data was not gathered by him or somebody under his direct employ, not another company. He cannot take work from another company. He cannot, by law, look over the plan and make sure everything's good. It will not happen.
Let's say tomorrow, all of this happened. What does it look like? I'm thinking about this from a business sense, because there are other business models that are these one call closes. I'm trying to think. Foundation is one of them. Painting houses is another. Roofing is the third. Right? That's just related to homes. This happens in many industries in a lot of different ways. To empower ourselves and to understand that it's here, this oversight actually has relevance across our lives. With your experience and what you're seeing and how you want to disrupt the foundation world to say, hey, we need to do better. This is what we owe our communities and the people that we are selling to. This is a skill that we can use in our life. I guess that's where I'm going with this, which is I'm excited about it. So if you were able to flip the script and go, cool, everything was here, what would it look like?
What it would look like is there would be a whole community of forensic geotechnical engineers that people would be able to easily find. And these geotechnical engineers would utilize better tools. One of the things that I developed is software to help engineers be more effective at doing this work. What people would easily find them, easily hire them. They would provide answers to questions. And if there were repair plans needed, then they would specify them. And the homeowner could go and get bids to install those plans. Now, to your point, could it be applied to other industries? I think it's far more important here for a number of reasons, at least to start here. The reason is because we're talking about work that should be done by an engineer and is not being done by an engineer. I don't know why the engineering community is not up in arms about it, but someday maybe we'll figure out the answer to that. The second reason is this is a huge outlay of money. When somebody, like, let's just take a real estate agent example. They're in the middle of a closing. Escrow's grooving along. The inspector's in the inspection window. He comes back and says, oh, by the way, it looks like there's signs of foundation movement. You need to hire an expert. So what do they Google and find a foundation repair company. What does he do? He comes out and says, oh yeah, you need $80,000 in peering. Everybody chokes, right? What happens to the buyer? The buyer's gone. The buyer's out of here. So the listing or the selling the agent, he just lost, maybe the customer will stay with him, but he lost that deal, right? What does the listing agent do? Well, the seller, he can't ask the listing agent to lie. That's not going to work, right? So what does he do? He fires the listing agent. Then the homeowner goes and patches everything up and tries to hide it all and finds a new agent to put it up for sale. And that's exactly what happens with this business. And it's a huge business. The foundation repair business is over $50 billion every year. That's a lot of money. And a lot of it, by the way, is not even needed to be done. I would say at least half of it is money that doesn't need to be spent.
Oh, that happens in business every day. Are you spending smart money? Are you asking questions to actually support and help your effort? Do we have the right data from the right people? Can we interpret this data correct? I was actually researching the butterfly principle today. Do you know the butterfly effect from 1963, right? This guy, Lorenz, I can't remember his name exactly, but what did he do? He took a point, had 6 places after the decimal point, rounded it to 3, and found craziness. Over 2 months, he found out anything is possible. We can't predict this. And I think that's empowering. It's also scary to the point of we can't always rely on others, and let's create our own net. I was thinking about that because I love the opportunity. And yes, it would take a lot of money and it takes time. And so that's why I was like, the flip of just at the snap of a finger, every single person listening, every single problem we're solving, every single way we show up to the world, what you have said is important to your industry, Bob. It's something we can all take and go, how do I do this? Who owns my favorite brand of cereal? What is their motivation behind this product? Where did this come from? How long has it been around? Just asking some of those questions so that we can get better at asking questions to find out, do I need an expert? Because here's the thing. This is what I love. We don't need an expert to live in our house with us to do this. We just need them for a couple of hours to help us get through this. So that's way different, in my opinion. I'm all about inserting short-term smart money to have the right data set with which to work in. And that's what I hear you saying too, is can we as homeowners shift? In your case, I know you talked a couple times about real estate professionals, and I know they have different names in different states. In Washington, they're called real estate brokers for commercial or residential. And being able to have them understand and be able to help out actually would help them, you're right, close deals. But what does it do? It preserves our biggest asset. If we got to insure it, if we got to cover it. And by the way, those are things that I think make a difference probably to our insurance too.
Most insurance companies don't cover foundation repairs because they have what they call an earth movement exclusion, which says if the damage in your house is caused by earth movement, we exclude it. If you can prove that all of a sudden you had a pipe break and it caused a sudden and catastrophic movement, you could possibly get it covered. It's difficult. I did it on one of my properties, but is encourage home inspectors to do floor level surveys and give them the right equipment and the right training to do it on every transaction, because that's very valuable data. Now you can go back and say, hey, here's what it looked like 5 years ago. Here's what it looks like now. Everything's good. Or, hey, Mr. Insurance guy, look, it was this way, and all of a sudden we had that pipe break. That's really good data that you can go back and make a claim and probably win with your insurance company if you have the data from beforehand.
Who can we align ourselves with too is a big part of this. Who is part of our network to help make sure that we have the right people? And here's the deal, was like what you're talking about with the forensic technic engineer, and they sound like elusive creatures. Just saying it makes me feel like they're incredibly rare.
Let's talk about engineers for a second. Most people want to call a structural engineer, and that's the wrong guy to call. I'll tell you why. He comes out to the house, sees a couple cracks, writes a one-page letter. It says, there's no structural deficiencies. Okay, we knew the house wasn't ready to fall down on us, but is it going to get worse? It could get worse if the ground continues to move. Was it ground going to continue to move? Oh, you got to contact a geotech engineer for that. I'm a structural engineer. So you're wasting your money with structural engineers. Now, there's a few of them that do forensics for this, and they do a pretty good job. They're aware of geotech and all that, but it's pretty rare. Most of the good guys to do this are geotech engineers. This is a soil problem. These are caused by soil movement. And you need geotech engineers. They understand the geology of an area, how the layers were done in an area, locally. They understand the soil profiles. They bore into the ground all the time. They know the typical profiles. They know all this stuff. They're the experts with soils. That's the guys we need to be listening to. Anybody else that tells you it's all going to continue moving or it's all done moving, if they're not a geotechnical engineer, they're BSing you.
I'm your host, Jess Dewell, and we're getting down to business. on the Bold Business Podcast. This is where we're tackling the challenges that matter most to you with actionable and achievable advice to get real results that lead to your success. Don't forget, press that bell icon so you never miss a program. And it's time to subscribe as well.
Hey, did you know? Of those of us with a plan, 10% just have an idea, 75% have written but don't use their plan, and 15% successfully achieve what is in their plan. Know exactly where you are and what is the necessary work to get where you want to go with a growth mindset reset. This is dedicated time to evaluate exactly where your business is, where you want it to go, and the trajectory you are currently on. Go to reddirection.com solutions to get started.
I live in Washington State, outside of Seattle, and in Kirkland, we found a map that sits on top of the neighborhoods and can tell us there's fault line exactly where we are. But let's say there was a big earthquake of a certain size. It can tell us what land is more likely to move and how, which is used to insure the houses of the neighborhoods as part of their homeowners insurance.
And there's also a map that you can get from the NCRS, National Soil Conservation Service. It's from the Department of Agriculture because it was originally built for farmers, but it'll tell you where there's expensive clays and it'll give you a map. It's not everywhere, but most of the time you should be able to get a map.
And if not, they're the people to go, hey, where could I find out about this? Who is my local resource? We spend a lot of time researching things that have way less consequence in our world. When it comes to these unique things, what I'm hearing you say is, especially foundations is one of these unique things. First, we have to have a structure that we own that is our responsibility. And then we have to want to take care of it. And then if a problem happens, we are responsible for fixing it. So depending on all of those confluence of things, it comes to that rounding error again. Where do you want to be? What could the outcome be? And I hear you saying just having some awareness of the question will help sift through to find out, do I need to talk to anybody else?
I fully understand the problem here. It's hard to find good forensic geotechs, right? I've tried to help a little bit. I put a directory on my website, Foundation Repair Secrets, and I've listed it by state. I haven't vetted any of these companies yet. I've looked them up, seen the services they offer, and figured out that, yeah, they do residential. Most engineers don't do residential. Most work on infrastructure, dams, freeways, parks, commercial buildings. Very few work in residential. And the ones that work in residential, even fewer do forensics. So I've tried to parse that out. I don't have any idea of their quality, but I found them. I've listed them. I hope that's a resource that helps people.
So armed with our questions, we could make a phone call if needed, which I think is great and amazing. You've taken the time to even just have something. All you're doing is telling us we have more and more of it's almost like they have a name, forensic geotech engineer, but it sounds like maybe we've made that up, like a unicorn. Or they're the mythical engineer when it comes to this, which is not a bad thing, by the way. It just means, they're there and everybody's found and here. Okay, so let's talk about this. You are a business owner. You owned your own foundation repair business for many years. It's not like this is news to you. You worked within the parameters and recognized what the shortcomings were. And here you are now today. Tell me if I get this wrong. You're out of the day-to-day these days, and you're focused on education and advocacy for our foundations.
While I was in business, I was also one of the few contractors, I think the only contractor that I know of, that also owned a forensic engineering company. Those engineers would do the analysis. We never let salespeople do it. I tried to advocate and convince people in the industry that this was the most ethical, most precise, the most accurate way in taking care of the homeowners. And if you're taking care of the homeowners, that should win out in the end, right? No, I couldn't get any buy-in from anybody. The company that bought my company promised that they would keep the engineering team in for 3 years, and they let everybody go in 3 months. That told me that change is not going to happen from inside the industry. It's got to happen outside the industry. And I'm going to be the change agent to make it happen.
This was like a double catalyst. Not only did you know people will tap my shoulder to help them out, of course, I'll do whatever I can. I have all of this knowledge to help educate homeowners in general. And then being able to have this legacy, being able to move this forward was ripped right out from under you.
Basically.
I only have 4 little words that you can't say on my podcast.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
It'll be 2 years this December.
So everybody listening, this was also recent. How did you get approached? How did you get approached for this entity to be interested in buying your former company?
It turns out that this entity was our single source supplier. And they were motivated because another large national player owned by private equity was interested in buying us as well. So they both bid up the price, which was great for me. I eventually elected to sell it to our supplier. I now regret that a little bit, but it is what it is.
Did they bring the most money?
Yeah, they both were fairly equal on the money side.
What was the deciding factor between the two if you bid them to their max?
The deciding factor was what I thought. I went with the person who would continue the legacy that I built with the engineering principles and a number of my patented services that were unique in the marketplace, which gave us a tremendous advantage. I felt like they understood it and would continue it the most. Unfortunately, they didn't.
So a part of the sale was also all of your patents?
No, I kept those.
These are really interesting points. So when they purchased your business, they were interested in the book of business. They were interested in the process. They were interested in your sales funnel. What else were they interested in?
We were the dominant player in our geographic area. They were interested in the ready-made operations and the business we were providing.
They bought your area.
Pretty close to $2 million a month, and that's just they could rely on that. So,
can I ask what your profit margin was for that business?
Oh, generally in the 10 to 15% range.
Wow. Wow. Your business was incredibly profitable. It was a specific geographic area. These two entities were interested in it, possibly for the same reason. Not only is it profitable, not only is it continuous, it was also a specific geographic area that was a well-oiled machine that is going to keep giving a return.
Right.
So they bought a cash cow.
Right.
And from the outside looking in, that big letdown at the get-go sounds harsh and horrible. Was there anything redeeming? Did they do other things according to the intention of the agreement that was made? I know it wasn't in writing, and I know they didn't follow the first one, but were there other intentions that actually did go well?
There were things that didn't go as they promised.
Mostly it was the intention. That was all lip service.
It was the money, and everything else went out the window.
Were you happy with the money? Was it worth it?
Yeah. It was time for me to move on. I realized that I was not going to make a change from the inside of the industry. And hey, I'm 65. It's time for me to do something else. I've been doing this all my life. Time to make a change.
Thanks for being really candid with me, because I know sometimes that's hard to talk about. Good for you for wanting to make the change. Good for you for having somebody that was there at the table to show up. Bad on them for whatever it is. And you know what? Hindsight being 2020, I guess we all learn that. And maybe some of that passion we were talking about at the beginning of the broken promise, I think there's a lot of similar stuff that happened in terms of the agreement versus the execution. A lot of intention without a lot to back it up. And in a business sale, that's actually a truth. That just is the way that it happens. But it doesn't have to be for an everyday thing that we do, for somebody's profession that they're going out and working with homeowners on a regular basis. So if I were to come back and say, now on the outside, now being in this next stage of life, now being able to go, oh, I don't have to run a business anymore. I actually get to be all advocate all the time. Here's what I'm doing. You've got this list on your website. You've got a book. You've got myths that real estate agents can get from your website. What is your biggest goal? There's not a lot of traction yet, but you're not giving up, which I love, because that's how movements are made. Are there specific kinds of real estate professionals, home inspectors, locally or nationally, that anybody that's coming across this can go, I know somebody like that, I can pass this on, because you're looking for something that you can make a bigger impact in the community? Who are the people who can help you in the community?
I learned a long time ago that when you make a change regarding people's homes, in the minds of the real estate professionals, it filters down to the homeowners ultimately. So I figured out that I need to convince realtors and home inspectors, educate them properly. I can have a targeted, immediate impact with real estate people. And if I can convince them that, yes, you need to call forensic geotech engineers, get a relationship now, get to know them, take them to lunch, have them ready when you have the problem come up. And then the other side of the equation is I've got to convince engineers that this is a service you ought to consider offering. It's profitable, it's not risky, and it's not being served. Engineers, part of their code of ethics says they must watch out for the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Welfare includes making sure they don't get ripped off. I'm appealing to engineers saying, listen, here's a calling for you. It's needed. It's badly needed. We need your help. And by the way, you can make money at it.
What makes them bold to know your business so well, you know how to disrupt it?
As I said, I'm uniquely positioned. I'm the only contractor that also owned a forensic engineering company. So I know how it does work and how it should work. I did it how it should work. And that's one of the reasons I developed the software that I'm now helping engineers with while I was in that business. I'm uniquely positioned to help people understand the problems and provide the solutions to help move it along.
Every single time I have a conversation, I take away something that I want to share with 25 people. I know when you're listening to this podcast, you're also listening for that and will have something that you want to share. In the comments, I would like for you to engage with us. What is that thing that you want to tell 25 people from this program? Here's why it's important. It's important because, yeah, there are going to be how-tos. Yes, there are going to be steps. Yes, you're going to be like, oh, I wish I wrote that down. I wish I wasn't doing this and I could actually take action on that right now. But guess what? You're not. So engage right now, because that one thing you want to share with others will be the thing that you can figure out how to incorporate in your business, in your workflow, in your style tomorrow.
Wow! Jess hosts the Bold Business Podcast to provide insights for building a resilient, profitable business by deeply understanding your growth strategy, ensuring market relevance, and your company's future. It is bold to deeply understand your growth strategy with your host, Jess Dewell. Get more information about how to drive solutions and reset your growth mindset at reddirection.com. Thank you for joining us, and special thanks to our post-production team at The Scott Treatment.